14 days after package installation, your bees are aging into field bees who are busy collecting pollen and nectar. Your queen is busy laying eggs, many of which have metamorphosed into larvae, some of which have been capped so that they can metamorphose into pupae. Your hive is less than 2 weeks from a population explosion.
Ready? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, this is our second inspection, day 14. And what we're going to do today is go through the hive and we'll expect to see maturity from what we saw last week. Jim's going to set the lid in back. He's going to put the inner cover in front like we did last week. Again, he's going to give a little puff of smoke to kind of get them off of the top bars for us. And that makes your life a little easier. And you'll notice when he lays that inner cover down, it will allow the bees on the inner cover to just crawl in through the hole. And the feeders should be empty in this case. Now there's always a little bit of burr comb on the inner cover, so you want to take it off, but they'll put it back on so it don't matter, but it helps you when you're working your bees not to crush them. Okay, so we're going to take out this outside frame here. So we're going to pull this outside frame out and give us a little space to work. And we're pretty lucky here. We can see they're drawing comb on frame number 7. Really good. You can see that we have a little bit being drawn right here. And that's telling you that you're seeing that because of the warmer weather we're having, so they're able to work in a looser cluster. Okay, see how nice and white, pearly white that is? Wait till you see the next frame. Now remember, we only had 10,500 bees in here. We're going to see a slight reduction in bees as older bees die. But we're also going to see a little bit more shift of bees going from working in the hive to going into the field day, as your nurse bees that were in here were. See right here, now here's some capped honey. See this right here that Jim's uncovering? And pretty soon we'll show you what capped brood looks like. Excellent. No eggs?
No.
So they're drawn out for the queen. They're putting honey in the corner, which is exactly what we want.
Now this hive lost 2 pounds in 1 week.
Now you see a little change in color. It isn't pure white. So they're starting to do something with that. Probably putting pollen in there. Do you see any eggs at all?
Yes.
So we got eggs in there.
Eggs all right down through here.
So she's come over here and laid a little bit, okay, which is excellent. And you can see up here again, capped honey. Okay, now we're feeding this hive. They're probably bringing some in because my neighborhood has just got oodles and oodles of flowers blooming. I don't see her.
Not yet, not yet.
See how carefully and quietly we take these things apart. You'll notice that Jim has a nice pretty bee suit. He's trying to outdo me. So look at here. There you go, look at that. That is capped brood. That's really one of the key things we're looking for. Capped brood gets capped at the end of day 8. So day 1 through 3, that's an egg. Day 4 through 8 is a larva. And now as it's capped, it'll move into the pupa stage. So now we're looking to kind of get an idea of where the caps are and stuff.
This is all larva through here.
So she's laying really, really
right
good.
Down in here, looking at the larva.
They're being real nice to Chris today. And again, capped honey down there. So what we saw last week when we worked these hives was more activity to the front of the hive than the back. Now, this is where we found a lot of eggs last time and the next frame. Now look at here. See how much of that is capped. That's gonna give you really, when that all hatches, it will drastically change what's happening in this hive. And if you look at the difference between the honey and the cap. And that, look how nice and healthy that cap looks, okay? Large amount. These little holes in here are usually done when the bee finds a larva that isn't viable anymore, and they'll remove it.
You noticed how this brood here is a little darker in color.
A little older.
It's a little older, and it gets darker because they got dirty feet.
Watch how careful Jim is maneuvering the frames. Okay.
There she is.
There she is.
Look how much larger she is.
See how long her body is in comparison to what we saw last week? And she looks really, really nice. For you people that have Italians, I had a couple of mine and they are giants. I mean, they're long and they're really golden in color, not a lightish gold brown. They're more of a gold yellow and really beautiful. And they haven't been picking on the paint on this one either, but she's a real nice looking carnolin. Another week, she might be more identified as a cross, but right now she's still looking like a carnolin.
This is a perfect frame too. All this brood down here, then there's eggs and larvae here, pollen, and then capped honey.
That's a perfect frame for you to look at. Now, last week they were all way up here. The foundation was pulled up here. Now they're inching it down toward the bottom bar. What's changed? Better weather, better conditions. The bees can spread out a little more. Look at the circle around that queen sitting there. They're immediately gonna go feed her. You could see the bees are all circled around her. Anytime your queen stops, remember that's what you're gonna see. But normally when you open your hive and you're looking at it because it's open and out, you're probably gonna see her on the move. So now the question is, would we feed this hive? Because look at the amount of nectar they've stored. So you're getting to the point where if we poured a bunch of food in here, we would probably crowd out the ability of the queen to lay. So you could see last week, this frame probably wasn't drawn out at all, because if you remember, Jim swapped the sides around. The side that we moved around is totally drawn out.
Look at all the pollen in this frame.
Wow, this hive is just beautiful. So I would say today, because of what we see with capped honey, we will probably not feed this hive because they got so much nectar flow around here that we won't do that. Now, we're not going to move the outside frame in or do anything like that. Keep your frames in order they're working them.
Now, there was a 2-pound drop in mass of this hive, but if I recall correctly, these were weighed after the syrup was added last time.
Correct. And
so that difference is consumption of syrup.
Correct. And the other thing you're going to see here is, which is pretty rare on day 14, they've drawn out frame 7. Last year we didn't see that.
No.
This year we're seeing it, but we're having 60 to 70 degree weather, which allows that cluster during the day to be broken wide. And as Jim was pointing out, the larvae and eggs were in ideal positions for this hive to keep that all taken care of and still go out here. So this hive is doing outstanding.
The reason we don't want to feed this again, another reason is if they start filling all these cells and she has no more room, they're going to think about swarming. They're going to think, we're running out of room, we need more room.
We'll leave the feeder in just in case changes next week, but I'm guessing next week we'll take the feeder out and put a frame in there. Just doesn't necessarily mean that I will say this, I talked to Ted yesterday. we're down here right at my house. We're practically 2 to 3 weeks ahead of him. Nukes and packages up there are still fairly small, maybe 4 frames drawn out, where we're looking at dang near 7 full frames drawn out.
Almost 7 full
so
frames.
that is, this hive is primo.
And I'm south of town, and they're just loaded. There's so much brood in those hives. I'm gonna consider putting supers on here next week. They just are gonna need more room.
Well, look at here. You even got bees out on the front fanning again. Remember last week we showed you that? That's a good sign of a healthy hive. They like to do that. They're maintaining temperature in there and stuff like that. But the other thing is they're sending the queen pheromone out, looking at the number of bees in here. We probably have 5 frames of brood. And I would say, now they're not all clear full, but at this time of year, we don't count it that way. But, and they probably have combined a full frame of honey stored.
Right.
And so that's excellent. What we're gonna do here is, this outside frame is all brood with a little bit of honey, and I want to show you what
That's your number 1 frame?
That's my number 1 frame, and you can see a tremendous amount of capped brood there and capped brood there. This hive actually has more capped brood than our other hive we looked at, but it had honey to start with, so it pulled out all the, you could see they ate the honey and put eggs in there. So what I'm going to do is take one of these empty frames and I'm going to move it over here and let them work on it, and they will get away from the wood. But the other thing is they'll have a tendency to want to draw this out because it's capped, and you can see they haven't touched this honey at all. So we got plenty of stores in here, no worry, but it's only about 2.5 frames of brood maybe, but it's got 2 full cap frames. So you think about that, they're big. That's about 6,000 bees per frame that are going to be added to this hive. So when that brood hatches, this is going to explode.
Burr comb, you can save it in a can or something like that, and then melt it down, and you'll have a lot of wax at the end of the year.
I'm going to bring up your embarrassing me real quick.
Well, you should. You should. Look at it. It's brand new.
Yeah, but no
I
blood.
got sick and tired of these crawling up my back and up my front.
What I get tired of is the suit stands on its own when I throw it on the floor.